This isn't your typical campfire ghost story. This is a real-life file, ripped open by mistake and slammed shut by a heavy, invisible hand. One name was enough to make the world's most powerful people tremble in their silk sheets. A remote island erased from maps, late-night ghost flights with no paper trail, voices that screamed into the void, and secrets rotting behind triple-locked doors. When the light finally hit the rot, the world went dark. Silence became a cold, hard witness. The Epstein case remains the jagged glass in the throat of the modern era. Jeffrey Epstein didn't just spawn as a monster. He crawled out of the ordinary. A man who treated power like a paranormal entity moving through closed rooms. Born in Brooklyn, his early life was boring, human. Nothing screamed private islands or blood money. But by his 20s, he was haunting an elite school, feeding on the influence of wealthy children. He learned a dark truth. Access is a deadlier currency than gold. He was a shadow that listened. When he pivoted to finance, he didn't bring skills, he brought souls. The horror wasn't just in what he did, but in how he was curated, like an architect of nightmares. He planted his influence in the highest circles of society. Those who entered his orbit didn't just meet a billionaire. They entered a labyrinth designed to capture their worst impulses. Every room on Little Street James was wired not for comfort, but for leverage. The blue and white temple on the hill stood as a monument to the unseen, a place where the laws of man stopped at the shoreline, replaced by the whims of a man who believed he had purchased immunity from God himself. Locals in the Virgin Islands still speak of the island of the whispering wind, where the sound of the ocean is often drowned out by something far more rhythmic and unsettling. They say the ground beneath the temple isn't just stone and mortar, but a hollowed-out resonance chamber designed to amplify the frequencies of fear. Divers have reported seeing strange, flickering lights deep beneath the surface, submerged structures that don't appear on any architectural plan, suggesting that the most horrific parts of the estate were never meant to be seen by human eyes, but were built for something much darker that thrives in the pressure of the abyss. His rise on Wall Street was a glitch in the matrix. No track record, no strategy, just billionaires handing over fortunes like they were under a spell. Epstein didn't want fame. He wanted a fortress. He bought mansions like gravestones across New York and Paris, culminating in a Caribbean island where cameras outnumbered the living. Staff signed blood oath agreements to stay silent for eternity. The terror intensified within the architecture of his estates. Witnesses described safe rooms that felt like tombs and a network of tunnels that supposedly snaked beneath Island's Paradisa facade. It was a digital panopticon where every whisper was recorded on servers that supposedly vanished the night of his arrest. This wasn't just a crime ring. It was a high-tech extortion engine fueled by the suffering of the innocent, maintained by a man who moved like a ghost through the halls of global power, leaving a trail of broken lives that the world chose to look past. There is a recurring nightmare shared by those who survived his reach, the feeling of being watched by a presence that has no pulse. Some claim that Epstein's mansions weren't just homes, but ritualistic spaces where time seemed to warp and the air grew impossibly cold. Descriptions of his office often include details of strange, ancient artifacts that seemed to drain the light from the room. It's as if he wasn't just collecting wealth, but was harvesting the very life force of the people he trapped, acting as a conduit for a primordial darkness that required a constant sacrifice of innocence to remain tethered to our reality. Then came the pattern. Young, broken girls recruited with hollow promises of a future. They were moved like cargo across borders, over oceans, into rooms where the air felt heavy with dread. Their testimonies all hummed the same terrifying tune. The same rooms, the same rituals, the same paralyzing fear. For decades, those screams were treated like static on a radio, ignored, buried, or paid to go away. In 2005, the silence broke. A family fought back. The walls should have caved in. Evidence was a mountain. Witnesses were a flood. Yet, in 2008, a miracle happened. A secret deal. Epstein pleaded to minor sins, served a joke of a sentence, and walked back into the sunlight. He wasn't just protecting himself. He was a shield for the monsters behind him. The message? The law bends until it breaks for those who know where the bodies are buried. But the ghost story took a digital turn that no one expected. Rainbolt, the internet's most feared geographic detective, The man who can find a needle in a haystack, using nothing but the color of the dirt and the shape of a cloud, allegedly turned his lens toward the afterlife of the financier. Using leaked imagery and metadata from recent ghost flights, rumors began to swirl that the Master of Shadows hadn't been buried at all. Rainbolt's uncanny ability to track coordinates led to whispers of a hidden compound in a non-extradition territory, where the dirt matches a specific, remote latitude that official records say is empty. Beyond the physical tracking, there is the digital haunting the dead man's switch that never went off. Security experts whisper about a decentralized server, hidden in a location so remote it defies satellite imaging, that continues to ping the dark web at 3 a.m. every Tuesday. These pings aren't just data. They are encrypted fragments of high-definition video, showing figures in the shadows that look like world leaders who have been dead for years. It suggests a digital purgatory where the blackmail didn't die with the man, but evolved into an autonomous entity, a ghost in the machine that still holds the world's throat in its cold, binary grip. If the geolocation data is to be believed, the man the world thinks is dead might be watching the fallout from a screen halfway across the globe. This isn't just a theory, it's the ultimate horror. The idea that justice was a theatrical performance, and the lead actor simply walked out the back door while the audience was distracted by the closing curtain. It turns the suicide from a tragedy into a getaway. Epstein went back to his ghoulish lifestyle, flying his Lolita Express, keeping ledgers of sins no one was meant to see. Then came 2019. Public rage acted like an exorcism. Federal charges landed like a hammer. He was tossed into a Manhattan cage, facing a reality he couldn't bribe. But in August, the glitch returned. Found dead. Officially a suicide. But the cameras? Dead. The guards? Sleeping like the dead. Protocols? Evaporated. With that death, the truth was buried alive. Names were never whispered in court. Evidence turned to ash. For the victims, there was no final boss to face. Only a deafening, mocking silence. Years later, the case is a monument to a broken system. The door slammed shut before the light could reach the basement. The investigation didn't finish. It fractured into a million pieces of blame. How does the most dangerous witness in history die alone in a high-security box? Court documents eventually leaked like blood from a wound, flight logs, calendars, names of kings and presidents. Some names stayed, others vanished like ghosts. The law moved with the speed of a funeral procession. Victims spoke louder, describing the trauma of being invisible. Settlements were paid, but you can't buy back a stolen soul. Justice felt like a hollow shell because the puppeteer was gone. Epstein became the face of untouchability, the idea that if you are rich enough, time itself becomes your accomplice. Governments promised transparency, a word that usually means nothing to see here. But the public didn't stop looking. The case wasn't about one man anymore. It was about the structures that let him breathe. The truth is still waiting in sealed boxes. The vacuum of his death invited hauntings of speculation. The negligence that night wasn't just oops. It was a message. Intent points upward, beyond the cell, into the stratosphere of power. Survivors still carry the scars, anxiety, memory loss, the ghost of a trust that was slaughtered. The most painful part? Realizing the world watched and did nothing. Prisons changed rules, and inspectors checked their checks, but the skepticism remained. If it happened once in the dark, is it happening right now? Finally, there is the legend of the Mirror Room, a place whispered about by former staff but never photographed. It was said to be a room where, no matter where you turned, you only saw a version of yourself that looked older, sicker, and utterly hollow. Epstein allegedly spent hours there alone, talking to reflections that didn't move when he did. Since his supposed passing, urban explorers who have breached his abandoned properties report hearing a low, rhythmic humming coming from behind the walls, the sound of a machine that refuses to shut down. Or perhaps the breathing of a man who found a way to trade his soul for a permanent seat in the shadows. History arrived late and damaged, but it demands to be looked at. Ignoring the rot is how the darkness wins. The Epstein case lives on because it shows how fragile the floor is when power walks on it. It reshaped laws not through justice, but through fear of being caught next time. Prosecutors were forced to stop making deals in the dark. Survivors got longer to speak. The deepest change was the chill in the air. Journalists started mapping webs instead of crimes. We learned that money can be a shield for the most horrific acts. Epstein was the symptom. The disease is the silence we allow. His legacy is a paradox, a destroyer who accidentally forced the world to wake up. The name now tastes like copper in the mouth. It's a question for every witness. Would you speak, or would you let the pattern continue? The truth persists, carving its way through history like a river through stone. Accountability isn't a gift. It's a constant war against the dark. The files are still being redacted, and the names are still hiding. If you think the truth should be screaming, hit that like button and subscribe. Comment silence if you believe there's more to the story. What do you think really happened in that cell? Rainbolt's latest geolocation analysis uncovered a high-definition anomaly in a remote, non-extradition territory, revealing a man matching Epstein's biometric profile living in a secluded, ultra-luxury estate on the streets. This was a soft kill,